Andy Ari On3 presented by BetMGM. You hear the sirens, you know what that means. There's news. And then is Arkansas has fired Sam Pittman. A move we figured was coming when we saw the empty seats at halftime in the third end game. If they might just try to save $3 million on the buyout, hoping they lost the next 3 games, which would have allowed them to cut the buyout. But Ari, they went ahead and did it today, which is probably one of those rip the Band-Aid off kind of things that needed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it just, you cannot come out into a game like they did on Saturday while on the hot seat and field the defense that doesn't look like it's practiced. I mean, it was like so bad. You began to, feel bad for Arkansas's players and their team. And I even think Sam Pittman, he's a nice guy, but there are certain expectations at every SEC program. And it's unfortunate that he isn't the person. Now, I think the most fascinating thing about this, after he was perpetually on the hot seat for 3 straight years, Andy, is that the very interesting, familiar face is taking over here, which is Bobby Petrino.
But the last guy who was successful as the head coach is the interim, is Bobby Petrino.
Yes. And I think what is, I saw some conspiracies about how this was going to play out, that maybe Arkansas would keep Sam Pittman around 1 more week and then bring Bobby Petrino in for a home game against A&M, which I believe is the last game he coached when he was the, coach of Arkansas, and we'll give him a chance before throwing
he also was
the Wolves.
The OC at A&M and Fishers last year.
Yeah. So, I don't know if this is going to be a slam dunk transition to the last guy who was successful there. Obviously, there's a lot of scar tissue with what happened there and how that ended. We knew for a fact that this was going to happen, though, and I think that Arkansas.
Sorry, I'm not at the scene of the motorcycle accident.
It looks
if
like
you're
it.
wondering. I am on the side of the road because, spoiler alert, we checked and they thought it was going to be quiet today, so I started driving to Orlando, and then this happened. So I'm in lovely Micanopy, Florida. I am not where the motorcycle accident happened in Northwest Arkansas that cost Bobby Petrino the Arkansas job the last time he had it. But you brought up the point of Sam Pittman being perpetually on the hot seat, and it has been this way for 3 years. And it just the problem is this job is incredibly hard right now. You're in an SEC that just added Texas and Oklahoma. Missouri's good. Ole Miss is good. Tennessee's good. These are all programs that weren't really that good or weren't even in the SEC when Bobby Petrino was coaching there. So it's a different job now. And
much different.
We'll
Not
talk
the same
about
job at all.
We'll talk about other potential candidates because obviously Rhett Lashley at SMU is from Springdale. He's a native son. It would be going home for him. We can have the argument later about whether you'd leave SMU for Arkansas at this point. But you've also got G.J. Kinney at Texas State, Alex Golish at USF, Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M.
Ryan
Silverfield at Memphis would be a very good candidate for this job. Yeah.
Who may or may not be appearing on our show at some point this week. And maybe that was just good booking. I don't like to promise anything, but Ryan's a good dude. And, his name's going to pop up. Andy, what do you think needs to occur at Arkansas for Petrino to keep this job? Is he in a tryout period right now?
Yeah, he's going to get some support. Now, remember the way it ended last time. He was fired for lying to his AD about who was on the motorcycle with him. It was not clean. It was ugly. So it's not like he would get universal support. There will be people who are for him because he was successful there. There will be people who are against him because of the way it ended. The way you get everybody on your side is you win some games they're not supposed to win. So if Arkansas goes on a run here, then Bobby Petrino has a chance to get this job.
The one thing that you have to say
their
about
next
Bobby
3 games are really tough.
Yeah, very tough games. Bobby Petrino has been known to draw up some ball plays, though, Andy. And Arkansas,
he didn't draw any up against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's defense gave up 30 to Purdue, and he only scored 13 against them.
I'm trying to breathe some hope into the fan base. Yes, he did not draw any. I mean, they could have scored a little bit more if they weren't perpetually down and pushing and pressing, but their offense is pretty good. Their offense isn't the hopeless thing. It's their defense. But yeah, how do you win?
Their defense is terrible. Yes.
How do you win the support? Like you said, Andy, by winning games against teams you're not supposed to. And I think if your offense can figure something out that at least gives you a drummer's chance of winning an exciting high scoring game. Obviously that defense is, I wouldn't say bad. I would say it's hopeless at this point. but this had to happen, and there's no reason why
Yeah.
Arkansas should be like unable to at least compete with some good teams. Like they weren't even competitive on Saturday.
That's the issue here, because Arkansas has plenty of money. That's never going to be the problem. I mean, look at basketball. They've hired John Calipari. They've funded him in a way that he can compete for national titles. You heard Hunter Yurachek say he's their AD. You heard him say a few weeks ago that maybe they're not funding football in the way that allows them to compete for the national title. And that is the AD's way of saying, give us more money, please. So we'll see if that happens, but they do have willing donors. They have a lot of big corporate donors. This is a place where if you start winning, they get behind you in a big way. The problem, as we said before, is when Arkansas has been successful in the SEC, it's when some of the other programs around it geographically have been down, and the programs around Arkansas geographically are very much up right now. Even Mississippi State, they were undefeated going into yesterday and took Tennessee to overtime. So everybody in Arkansas is kind of a peer with that they would have to compete against for players, for assistant coaches, for everything. They're good now. Ole Miss is good. Missouri's good. It's a tough spot.
Yeah. Ole Miss is a pretty tough spot. Now, the thing that I'll say, Andy, about Walmart is the logo's there. Maybe they can get some, rollback pricing on some of these NIL athletes. I don't know what the deal is. I never really know, and I have a hard time gauging which teams actually could be like sleeping NIL giants if they pulled a certain lever. I think Arkansas would fall into theoretically they could be pretty good at it. Field. But I also think that
they're one of them. Yes,
that NIL goes hand in hand with program optimism, and that was part of the problem too with Sam Pittman. I think it was probably harder to draw up money or to raise money to support the staff because people already have been out on him for. I mean, I'm sure some of the donors were out on him for 3 years. I mean, we were talking about how he was on the hot seat. You know, the Athletic. Like, this is perpetual, and it's kind of hard to drum up enthusiasm. But what's the most amazing way to get enthusiasm? Bring in a coach, whether that be Bobby Petrino or one of the other candidates that we just alluded to. Get some excitement, get some, some change going on, and all of a sudden, change turns into money, and money turns into change. So, that's the kind of the way that I would look at it. I think that at some point somebody commented here in the live chat, Andy, I know it's probably harder for you to see it right now, given your circumstances than me, but somebody said we should do a random ranking of the openings and maybe we can add in some jobs that we think will be open and make an episode out of it. But I wonder just in general, how coveted you think this Arkansas job is.
Some of the names we talked about, like Ryan, like Colin Klein, could be in line for K-State if Chris Kleiman decides to retire or something like that. So, this is one of the people that maybe you'd be surprised. John Roll from Tulane, he's one consideration for this job. So, Lashley would have been,
I think we might have lost Andy because he's on the side of a highway. So let me just finish this up here. River, you can come up and join me if you want, just to give me some company. But the thought process here is, it's an SEC job. It's an SEC job that probably has some major support that would come around with some added enthusiasm. And I think that all Arkansas people want is to have a place that is competitive. And I think that that's an attractive opportunity. Like, we have seen Arkansas be successful in the not so distant past. And as Andy alluded to before he, disconnected, they have had, a reason to believe. But I think that it is kind of an attractive job to a certain extent, because when you look at some of the other SEC jobs, they'll want to fire you after year one if you don't go 10-2. And I don't know that that's the case at Arkansas. I think they want to be competitive. I think they want to have a reason to believe. And it's a strong and loyal and dedicated fan base. It's a really, really good job for the right person. And I think some of those names that we, talked about earlier were the right people.
Yeah. Look, Silverfield, Summerall, Lashley, those are all really good coaches. I think, Ari, has the ship sailed? Has the sun set on the Gus Malzahn homecoming? I think it probably has.
Yeah, I think that Gus Malzahn's last few stops at, as a head coach, where it ended at Auburn and how it went at UCF, probably, makes people believe that he's a better coordinator than he is a head coach at this point, especially considering he's been at it for such a long time. I think that the wave of excitement from at least people in my perspective is just like the young, exciting first-time guy who might have something figured out that old-timers haven't yet, and I think that that's, when you think about drumming up excitement, to me, it's more about the unknown than the retread. So for me, I like a Rhett Lashley type of person, a guy who's been in the playoff in this current era at a place that, has resources, but is an atypical place, is exciting. I think that there's a long conversation to be had about Arkansas, how it recruits, the territories, whether or not being lumped in some certain geographical areas the way that it used to be. Well, I guess now that Oklahoma and Texas are in the SEC, maybe they are in Texas a little bit more than they've been in the past. Like, how do you go about it? What's the plan? That's on all like a Monday or Tuesday discussion. But I think that Arkansas in general, it should be a pretty attractive place for somebody who's hungry to win, because it gives you a seat at the table. And Andy, the one thing that we have to acknowledge more than anything is that having a seat at the table or having a job in one of those two conferences is inherently more valuable than it's ever been. Just being a coach in the Big Ten, just being a coach in the SEC. And Arkansas, we have had discussions in the past about, well, is it just a place that has unrealistic expectations and has to accept the fact that it's at the bottom of the food chain? Maybe we were a little bit short-sighted on that. Maybe Arkansas should expect to compete for an SEC championship once every 3 or 4 years. And if they do that, I think they'll be happy. And I think that there's plenty of coaches out there, especially a few of the ones that we just named on that list, and maybe even Bobby Petrino, I don't know, that could probably accomplish that. So you have an SEC, like I think that the golden sweet spot, Andy, more than anything for new jobs is, can you exist in one of the two biggest conferences in college football, and do you have a high chance of keeping your job for a long period of time? Now, I don't know where Arkansas ranks in the second part of that.
Yeah, but and the thing about it, Ari, the thing about it is Arkansas has a history of actually getting to the SEC championship game. I mean, Houston Nutt took them there a few times. They've been more successful than other programs in the SEC now. Like, they've seen it in a not too distant past. So it does make sense why they would feel this way, and they have tons of money. So you hire the right guy, because I think Missouri, when they hired Eli Drinkwitz, we probably would have said the same things about them. And that was a program that Gary Pinkel had done really well with, had been to the SEC championship game in 2013. But it was like, okay, but nobody's going to do that again. Nobody's going to really make them good again. Well, Eli Drinkwitz did make them good again. He's gotten good players. He has a good roster. It's doable. And Arkansas fans got on me a few months ago because we were talking about this job, and I said how hard it was and how I don't know, like, because it feels like once you win 9 games at Arkansas, then you're on the clock, and then you start being perpetually on the hot seat after that, because it's like, okay, now when are you going to win 11? When are you going to win, more than that? But they were right in that it is doable there. If it's doable at Ole Miss and it's doable at Missouri, then it is doable at Arkansas. They're right about it.
And also you can say, Andy, like, if you can do it at Vanderbilt, you can do it here, right? Like, how many teams are doing it at other places that are atypical? If you can do it at South Carolina, you can do it here.
Yeah, Vanderbilt hasn't done it yet. So, but like South Carolina and Arkansas are good analogs. Came into the SEC at the same time, probably equal amounts of success through the years in the SEC, and it is doable. So this is a good job. Certainly, if you want to get rich, it's a good job. The question is whether you get rich coaching there a long time or whether you get rich getting bought out. It's one or the other, but you're going to get rich. And I bet a lot of coaches are going to want this thing, not the least of which is the interim coach, who was the last truly successful coach there. Ari, this is going to be a juicy story to follow the rest of the season.
Yeah, can't wait to do it, Andy. And thanks for being a team sport player here and setting up on a highway. But let's catch up more about this week.
I'm going to go find that motorcycle.